So, about 6 months ago, I'm on the train and I'm heading up to Newcastle for some work. And Oxford to Newcastle, it's a long train journey, 5.5 hours, cross country. And the inevitable happens. The train halts, grinds to a halt. So we're sat there. I've already worked out that the train announcer is one of those who gives you minimal information, not one of those quite chatty ones that you sometimes get. Anyway, 10 minutes goes by, we're sat there. Nothing, no idea why we've stopped. Then he comes across on the tannoy. Ladies and gentlemen, we do apologise for this halt in our service. It's been caused by a bridge strike. We hope to be on our way again as soon as possible. And I'm sat there thinking, bridge strike? What does he mean by a bridge strike? And then I sort of had this vision of somewhere down the line, this bridge just kind of saying, no, that's it. I've had enough. I've had enough. I'm not doing this anymore. And, you know, people talking to it like, come on, you'll be all right. No, I'm sick of it. What is it, the money? No, it's not the money. No, it's not the money. It's just other bridges coming. Come on. We're all in this together. Let's do this. No, I'm sick of it. I feel like I'm getting walked over all the time.
Oh.
and all this playing out in my head. Eventually we moved on. I never quite worked out what the bridge strike was. I'm sure it must have been a car or something that, but it got me thinking. Lost in translation, right? This happens all the time. This phenomenon now of making everything so succinct, so short, and assuming that we all understand what's being said. And that's partly the reason we are doing this today. So hello, everybody. Welcome to the speaking point from the team at Speak the Speech and our podcast today, which we've called Lost in Translation. So this is going to explore all about the different types of communication that different generations used, how that can help us, how that can hinder us. Now, why should you listen to this? I mean, surely generations, we've always had differences in our communication, haven't we? But a lot of the feedback that we get from our clients on a day-to-day basis is how communication these days, certainly since COVID, is so impacted by factors that just weren't there before. So obviously since COVID, we're all so much more used to Teams meetings, Zoom. I mean, you know, ask someone 10 years ago the word Zoom, and those of a certain age would have thought of the best song of the 1980s by Fat Larry's band, right? Those of you who've never heard it, have a listen to Zoom by Fat Larry's band. But nowadays, of course, it's the way we speak, or a lot of the way we speak. And we've all got used to it, but it has created problems. And so the purpose of this talk today, this podcast today, is to explore how the different generations like to communicate, how that works and how that might not work. So I'll run you through how it's all going to work in a moment, but I must first introduce you to the amazing team from Speak the Speech. There's 4 of us here today. There are normally 5. My lovely business partner, Boo, can't be with us because he's working in Jersey. He's doing this offsite in Jersey. But diaries being as they are, this is the only time the rest of us could get together. And so I'm going to get them to introduce themselves. I don't know whether we should go in order of age, beauty or intelligence. Okay, I've worked it out. Jan, would you like to go first?
I was going to say that Ruth hits the spot for every single one of those.
Oh, Jan, too kind.
So, good afternoon. Yeah, I'm Jan. And May 2026 will mark my 40th year in training and development.
Wow.
40 years. And yes, I've worked in the corporate world and I went into consultancy. I've been freelance, but yeah, 40 years just being in the training world. And over that time, I've had some amazing experiences that have, made me realize why I do this. And there are loads over the years, but there's one that just is a standout one for me. And I was working in Singapore, working with a group of women, and I was with them for 2 days. And at the end of 2 days, there was this one participant, we're doing our goodbyes and all that business. And she came up to me and she stood in front of me, took both my hands in her hands. And she took my hands in hers, she looked me in the eye, and she said, "You have changed my life."
Oh.
Wow.
And you know what I was doing? I was running a customer service program. And I remember then, and I am going back quite a few years, but I can remember then thinking, wow, number one, this is amazing. And number two, what responsibility. But just that alone was why I sort of carried on doing it. And why I'm still here 40 years later.
Wow.
Mm.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Jan. How about you, Mikey?
Thank you, Jan. You should have warned me of that. You know how emotional I get.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike.
Yeah, Mike here. Look, I've had a love of the spoken word and the live environment ever since I was cast in the lead of the school play at the age of 17. I was given the extraordinary part of John Proctor in The Crucible by Arthur Miller, my all-time favourite playwright. And then, of course, subsequently drama school, where you and I met, John, and everything that came after. But it was my first session with you, John, 15 years ago, in a small space just off Leicester Square, where I observed you giving a one-to-one session, which I still remember to this day, to a chap. It was for the whole day. I couldn't believe that you could spend a day sharing communication skills with people. And I was hooked. I instantly realized that day how much of what we'd learned in our drama school days, being on stage, how much of it was absolutely transferable to people in all walks of life who have to speak under that bit of pressure. And I was just remember being blown away with how you shared the various tips and techniques and how well you fed back to this guy and things he could improve on. So that was incredible. So I was living in Budapest at the time, went back to Budapest a day or two later. And as luck would have it, a dear friend of ours, Mr. Attila Molnar, had a very senior position with the United Nations and was based out in Myanmar. And he'd heard about the work I was doing or had done with you. So he asked for a one-to-one session. So I find myself in Attila's apartment in Pest and spend a few hours with him. And, a bit of a baptism of fire. He's quite a character, isn't he, Attila? But it was an amazing session. And a week later, I received this from Attila. Dear Mike, I just took part in the United Nations Country Coordination Mechanism meeting with His Excellency, the Minister of Health, chairing, and some 200 senior people from international agencies. I had my best 45 minutes presentation ever, and have never had such success with initiative approvals before. This is all to do with the training I had with you and everything you do at Speak the Speech. This has made a vast difference in my professional life. Wow. So that was it. We speak about impact. Here was just this instant feedback from a dear friend whose amazing speech affected the lives of thousands of people around that country with the various projects he got approval for. And to think that in some small way or big way, we'd played a part in that. I'd played a part. You'd played a part from what I'd learned from you. And that was it. I was sold. I need to do a bit more of this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Wonderful story, Mikey. We literally change the world. This is what we do. We do. Yeah. It's that big, isn't it? Fantastic. Thank you, buddy. Ruth, what about you? Say hi.
Yes, I am Ruth. I'm the newest member of Speak the Speech. I've been with you guys for a year. Is it even a year? Maybe
just
not
over,
even
I think,
a year.
Yeah.
And I've had my own journey with communication. So it means quite a lot for me to actually help people that might have had the same difficulties that I had. So when I was a kid, I was very, very shy. I used to hide behind my dad's legs. I would not feel comfortable expressing myself or my own opinion. Super shy. Then when I was about 10, I found acting. and I loved it. But the reason that I loved it was that I got to try on being these different characters, these confident characters. You know, it was like I got to escape my shyness for a little bit and be someone else, speaking someone else's words. And I went to drama school, like you guys, and I became an actor. But in my personal life, I was still shackled by this shyness. You know, if I had to stand up and speak as myself in front of an audience, it would fill me with absolute dread. So we graduated from drama school, and a group of us discovered promotional work, or as they like to call it, being a brand ambassador, which is just a fancy way of saying handing out free samples in a train station, basically. So it would be going up to complete strangers and trying to convince them to care about whatever this product was that you are holding. In other words, my worst nightmare, right? So I did it. I turned up every day to somewhere new, talking about a totally new product to new complete strangers. And at first, it was torture. I found it so difficult. I would dread going to work every day. But then I discovered these kind of little tricks to help me appear more confident. And every day I would do these tricks, and I realized that I was coming across quite well and I appeared confident. And then I did them so much. I was working in this every day, doing it again and again. And eventually it just became the way that I spoke. And I realized at some point I was free of that shyness that was holding me back. And cut to 20 years later, and I start working for speech to speech. And it's
Easy for you to say.
But it's the techniques that we teach.
Yes.
It's the techniques that we talk about. But I didn't know they were techniques back then.
No.
They were just my way of coping. They were my way of getting through.
Yeah.
But actually, this is stuff that we are teaching that help people. And I just, this is why I do it really, is to help people get to that place that I got to much quicker and with a lot less emotional trauma in train stations.
That's it. It's a fantastic story. And have I said who I am? John? John from Speak to Speech. So yes, my journey with Speak to Speech started 22 years ago. And eventually we put a course together, but I'll never forget the first time we did it. We did a trial run, we got some 4 guinea pigs. So didn't charge them anything, but it was still the most nerve-wracking I've ever been. I just thought, are they going to go for this? You know, really, are they going to go for? There was some quite senior people there from Texaco and Ford, and they loved it. They absolutely loved it, and they said, "Yeah, this will work. This will land well," and that's how it started. So there's 3 main areas that we're going to be covering on this particular podcast. Number 1, we're going to explore the different generations, and when we talk about the generations, we're talking about your baby boomers, who would have been born between 1946 and 1964. That's going to be Jan's going to talk about those. Mikey's going to talk about Generation X, which is people born between 1965 and 1980. I'm going to talk about Generation Y, which is 1981 to 1996. And then Ruth will talk about Generation Z, which is 1997 to 2012. So you see, it's fortunate that we all fit into those age categories rather nicely. Yes. So we'll start with that. We're going to explore the different generations. And then we're going to talk about how their preferred communication style helps or hinders them in the workplace. And a lot of you who are listening or watching this have contributed to this bit as well. Thank you. Those of you who we sent out a questionnaire asking for some examples of how this sort of generational divide can sometimes help, can sometimes hinder. And then lastly, we're going to talk about what can we do about this. So we're hoping to leave you with some food for thought, maybe even a few tips, suggestions that you can talk about and take forward, and I hope will help you in your workplace. So yeah, Jan, we're going to start with you and the baby boomers.
Well, I think I just need to put a bit of context around what we're going to talk about. Yes, we're going to explore the differences in the way generations like to communicate, prefer to communicate, etc., etc. However, I think we need to be aware that we could be making some wide-sweeping generalizations at times. Of course we are. But there are some absolute definite traits. And I think the other thing that's important to bear in mind is that we're not talking about good or bad or right or wrong. Because we're not. We're just talking about the traits that there definitely are in some of that generational communication. Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Yes.
So in which case, shall I kick off? Shall I kick
Yes.
off?
Go for
So, good up.
Jan's going to kick
I'm
off.
going to kick off. Yeah, be prepared when Jan kicks off. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mary. And I'm from Kent. And that's Kent. It's not southeast London, thank you very much. It's Kent, the Garden of England. However, the way they've been shoving up houses over the last 20-odd years, I reckon Kent, the block-paved backyard of England, might be a better description.
Okay.
I drink tea. I drink tea as though it's a civic duty. I think that queuing is good for you. It builds character. And I will absolutely judge you if you do not indicate correctly at roundabouts. I don't like to make a fuss, but I can be relied on to put together a carefully worded email to the council, particularly around things like potholes, car parking charges, and the bins not being replaced properly. Okay. My first house cost considerably less than the second-hand car that I bought last year. They do not write songs like they used to. They just don't. Outwardly, I'm quite polite. Inwardly, not necessarily so. But I am quietly quite proud of having turned out all right, actually. Yes, everybody, I am a baby boomer.
Hurrah.
I am a baby boomer.
I'm proud of it.
I am
Yes.
proud of it, yeah. And I suppose, I do have to give you a bit of sort of context around that. So, I grew up in an age where if you weren't talking face to face, communication just took forever. It felt like it took forever. The household that I was brought up in, we didn't have a phone until it must have been the mid-70s. So, baby boomers, preference is we just talked to people because it was quicker and less expensive. I suppose there are three key things, and those of you that know Speak the Speech won't be surprised to discover there are three key things. Three key things that really struck me. And I suppose the first one was that email isn't the preferred professional way of communicating. I honestly thought that email was going to come top of the list for how you communicate in the business world. And I was, because to me that is going back to my letter days and my days of fax. I used to send faxes as well. Emails are thoughtful, they're considered, you take your time, you can amend an email, you don't hit the send button until you've got it correct. So I was absolutely convinced that would be the preferred method. And then to discover that for some of the other generations, it's seen as quite scary. It's seen as a bit like being summoned to the head teacher's office or whatever. And that just never occurred to me. Didn't see that one coming. The other one that surprised me, and again, from my preference around talking to people, I pick up loads by seeing people. So I pick up emotion by looking at people's faces, their facial gestures, hand gestures. I pick up loads from the voice, from the intonation. So I'm used to seeing emotion. And again, the thing that struck me was from some of the responses was that, of course, other generations are used to reading it.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the whole business around emojis. Because I have to confess this. I mean, I always thought emojis were just a bit of a joke. And to me, they seemed so unprofessional.
Mm.
And then to have this sort of awareness of, no, Jan, it's emotional punctuation.
Mm.
So I do use emojis, I do. If I'm honest, not necessarily because I want to, but I've come to realise that if I don't, then, well, I can come across as scary.
Mm.
So that was an eye-opener. But the one that floored me, and it really did, who knew that intergenerational misunderstandings aren't necessarily based on misunderstandings around values? They can be based around punctuation. So from some of the research that I got back, to discover that a full stop and ellipses, can't say the word, that people can interpret that as anger. And that was just like, wow, where did that come from?
Yeah. Because I know about like capital letters and things like that, full caps, but yeah, full stops and ellipses,
Yeah.
that can be construed by baby boomers.
So if I use full stops,
Oh, I see. Right, that can be construed. Yes.
To other generations, it can be
Dot can be seen as almost threatening.
Yeah.
And you look at the emails I send you. I dot.
I always dot.
Yeah.
I'm a dot.
Yeah, I am. Middle name dot.
I dot all over the place.
Yeah,
so I apologise if I'm frightening you.
No, you don't frighten me. No, I just give you dot
back.
And an emoji.
You dot me? Oh yeah, and an emoji. Oh gosh, yeah. So I suppose that was the three key things from my research.
Yeah, brilliant. And so much of that resonated with me, like the music, definitely. We were, I was with my kids. Thank God we're not doing the next generation, by the way, because, I don't
Gen
know.
Alpha.
Gen Alpha, yeah.
Oh, is that where they are?
Yeah. Because we just went on a holiday recently, France, and we did a bit of a drive around France. And because we were doing a lot of driving, we put a family playlist together. So we were each allowed to pick 10 songs from our family playlist. And the kids were horrified when mine and my wife's came on, and they were like, "This song's 5 minutes 30 seconds long." And like, yeah, it was like Madonna sang for 5 minutes 30. Madonna, yes, and because their songs like 2 minutes 20, so they really don't,
How would they
it's all about attention spans, isn't it? I think they don't have that.
Couldn't cope with Pink Floyd then.
No, I guarantee if my kids watch this, they'll be watching it on ×2
Yes.
speed. So now I'm going to deliberately just talk really, really quickly for a minute, so that's going to really freak them out when they're watching this back. But that's what they do. They never watch something on their own. But anyway, we're talking about a generation that we're not, thankfully.
But you've just cleared up something for me, because I just got a message. That I said this morning that Millie has messaged me that she'd arrived safely in Berlin, but she's titled the group chat, which is a family chat thing, Alpha. And I had no idea what she was referring to, because it's her and her friends in the photographs.
Yes.
So they're the Alpha.
They are the Alpha.
God,
that's what they are, yeah. I guess Z, you have to go back to the beginning again.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yes.
Yeah. Of course. It's like number plates.
Yeah.
They're the new number plate.
Don't do this
the
to
Alphas.
me.
Yeah. Jan, thank you for sharing all of that.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. That's fascinating. And we'll delve into, the good and the bad of that in a little while. But let's hear a bit about Mikey's gen.
Hi. Jason here. Northwest London. I don't know why I've gone a bit posh. Don't anyone try and tell me that A Town Called Malice by The Jam isn't the greatest pop/rock song of all time. Okay, maybe Going Underground gives it a run for its money. All right, half a dozen songs by The Jam or Paul Weller are up there. I watch MTV a lot. I play Pac-Man and Space Invaders. Ruth's looking at me like, Pac-Man and Space Invaders. I am convinced I will have an orange glow on my walk to school. Yes, walk. If I just eat enough Ready Brick. I drive Vauxhall Vivas and Ford Granadas, and tailgating isn't really a thing yet. Before getting my driving license, I rode a rally chopper. and a BMX. And time to go home was past fading light. I am a little obsessed with E.T., Back to the Future, and Jaws, I should say, has changed forever how I feel about going for a swim in open waters. Thank you, Mr. Spielberg. My house telephone is a solid brick of a thing. It's an off-white cream block with a rotary dial. It would be rare for me to be on the phone more than a couple of times a day because between work and family, I see the people I need to be in contact with. I am with the people I need to be in contact with. As you may have worked out by now, I am indeed a Gen Xer. So yeah, in terms of communication, one thing I've realized I am allergic to is corporate jargon and micromanagement. So I would prefer practical, straightforward, and respectful communication. I'm a fan of email. I'm a stickler for tone, and this is where my challenge is. I've been on the receiving end of emails that strike me sometimes as just that little bit cold, that little bit formal and functional, and then of course we meet the person who is the embodiment of warmth and kindness, and I get a bit confused when the electronic version of a person is so far removed from the face-to-face version. So one tip I came across, which I know we're going to talk about key tips later on, but just sometimes think about writing in the style in which you speak can be a really good way of just, helping people get a clearer sense of who you are and how you come across. Beyond that, phone calls, I need to hear. It would be my preference. There have been many times I've received an email, trying to book in a phone call for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days later. And I've picked up the phone and I've got hold of that person there and then, and they've answered. A little taken aback that I've called them sort of off the cuff. And lo and behold, we've solved or answered whatever questions needed answering within a couple of minutes. So that's been a thing for me, a recurring theme about, I struggle with booking conversations. Can we just talk? Can we just talk, please? So that's kind of where I am. I'd like to hear. I need to hear that tone to get a sense that this is actually, in a really old-fashioned sense, a decent, all right, kind person, and I get that on the phone, and of course, face to face. In terms of the research, a few really interesting things. I have discovered that there are entire government departments now that are landline free.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, landline free.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why that surprised me so much. I mean, we don't have a landline at home. But for me, what that does is it hammers home this idea that we are reachable all the time.
Yeah.
There's just no switch off, and that sort of work-life balance vanishes really, because if everything's coming through the mobile, if we have families, kids, it's 24/7, isn't it? So that sort of absence of landlines, not just at home but in the workplace, that did actually surprise me. It did actually surprise me. And finally, I dived a little deeper into why there is often such a disconnect between people's online and real-life persona, and I learned about the online disinhibition effect, which describes how the lack of immediate face-to-face feedback, it stands to reason, reduces social restrictions, allowing for more assertive or different kinds of behavior. So it's the lack of immediate social consequences that enable people to feel safer or bolder or more distant or whatever choices they make. So when you get those kind of empathy-free or cold, what seem like cold, blunt, very, very business-like emails, it might just be because someone is experiencing the online disinhibition effect, where they're not seeing that instant, the raised eyebrows or the kind of the look of perhaps mild shock or disapproval or confusion on someone's face. So, and I suppose that explains the armchair. If I get an email saying THX, for you are
Right, yeah.
I will bristle.
Okay, fine, yeah.
There's
okay.
a fair chance I will
Just be
bristle.
careful when you email Mikey. But I mean, you said that. I know a couple of weeks ago. When you were trying to contact, and there was a load of back and forth with the emails, wasn't there? And then you weren't getting emails back, and then you just said, "Oh, so I just phoned her," and that was it. And
Absolutely,
and I think you described also the hello. Hello, like someone phoning on my phone,
Yeah,
like this
absolutely, yeah,
person
yeah.
that you were speaking to.
Yeah,
Because
it can-
we're not used to it now, are we? I
No.
mean, none of us get that many phone calls anymore,
No.
do we? Really?
No.
I always look at it with suspicion now. And I go, well, what's that all about?
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
only speak to my mum on the phone.
Do you?
It's the only person.
Yeah. Yeah.
But us
true.
Gen Xers, we can adapt. If you told me 6 months ago I would be sending WhatsApp voice messages, I would have,
yeah.
I would frankly have
Voice notes.
yeah,
Yes.
voice notes,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
What do I
yeah.
call them? There you go. Voice
messages.
voice notes. But I do it quite a bit now. I've been sucked into that world, and I sort of can see the benefit.
Well, this is what what Jan said earlier on.
Yeah.
None of this is necessarily right or wrong, and I think we have things to learn. Of course, we have things
Absolutely,
to learn,
yeah.
don't we? And we'll get on to that a lot more. Good, thank you for that, Mikey. So, my turn. I'm Cody. I will travel across the city and queue 45 minutes for smashed avocado on sourdough. I will do that. I own 12 houseplants and I talk to all of them. And I get a little bit panicky if one of the leaves turns yellow. Yes. I dream of quitting corporate life and buying a cafe or a bookshop or a camper van and just setting off. That's my dream. Haven't done it yet, though. I prefer communication that is written, brief, and doesn't involve my voice. No, thank you. Emails are fine. Messages are ideal. Phone calls feel unnecessary, intrusive. If you call me without warning, I will assume something has gone wrong. I use emojis. Not for fun, but for tone management, right? Tone management. Without them, everything reads as passive-aggressive, Jan.
Okay.
So that is agreement. That is reassurance. If you ghost me, it means I've failed both professionally and as a person. So don't ghost me. So I communicate openly, collaboratively, avoid voicemail entirely, and I will spend the rest of my life torturing myself waiting for you to reply. I'm 36. And I am a millennial. So there we go. Yes, millennials, ladies and gentlemen, lovely people, lovely people, millennials, of course. And in the process of my researching of this generation, I found it interesting to not only look at how they communicate the way they do, but also a little bit about the why they communicate. And it was interesting that their communication styles were shaped by pretty major global shifts, right? So it's not just generational preference, it's global shifts as well. And three things in particular resonated with me. So number one was millennials were the first generation to grow up alongside internet and mobile phones, right? So how does this affect how they communicate? Well, they expect instant access to information. They prefer digital communication like chat and email and WhatsApp. This was a generation brought up on 24/7 news cycles, social feeds, constant notifications. And so this has shaped their levels of attention as well. And so their preference now is for fast, informal, concise, and visual communication. Emails or instant messages instead of picking up the phone. The second major global shift that affected them was recession. So the global financial crisis of 2008 being the prime example. And again, they were very much affected by, I know we all were, but they grew up with this. It led in part to student debt. It led to job insecurity, like we hadn't known it before. Housing affordability issues, which the dear boomers and the X's didn't have to worry quite so much about. And so what this means is they're a lot more cautious about their careers. They're more vocal about things like pay and flexibility, working from home. And above all else, they really value transparency and honesty from their leaders. And finally, the Generation Y, the millennials, have grown up in a much more diverse global world. All right. The early part of this century has seen the development of cultural exchange, global teams, multicultural workplaces, right? And so when you think about that, that's how that relates. It's all around the language, the inclusive language that they like to use and they like to have used to them. Value-driven discussions are essential to millennials. There's an expectation of global collaboration, remote working, and they're very sensitive to representation and fairness. And this is something I know we've all had to experience over the years with our courses. You know, I've always thought it would be quite interesting if we were to be shown one of our courses 20 years ago and then compare it to one of our courses now.
Yeah.
And the language that we will use now that we would not have used. And fantastic. Thank heaven that we do that, right? That we are sensitive to that. But that has been a phenomenon really from that has started with this generation. So they value communication that is straightforward, that is clear, that is succinct, that is neutral. They like to be heard. They like to be valued. So ask them their opinions, ask them for their ideas. Always a good idea. And they would definitely prefer to be managed or led in a mentor style way rather than an authoritative way, right? Any feedback you give them should be framed around their learning and their development.
Fascinating.
Isn't it? Lovely people.
I was just thinking about what you said about if we were to go back 20 years.
Yeah.
I clearly remember that when I used to be setting up rooms for training sessions, one of the first things I did was put out the ashtrays.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ashtrays around the table and imperial mints.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to have ashtrays, you've got to have them
Imperial
imperial
mints.
mints, haven't you? Yeah.
But that's just, you mentioned that the day-to-day stuff. I've got two adorable nephews who are millennials, and I'm very close to them and deep, really fond of them both. And just a couple of months ago, I was flying over to Ireland, and my nephew we were at the airport together ordering some food. And I'm there, the waiter comes up, I order my food from the waiter, Natch, and he looks to my nephew. He said, "No, I'm fine. I'm sorting it." And he was sorting it off the QR code. So there is a physical person ready, pen in hand, to take the order.
Yes.
And again, this is, as Jan says, this is purely an observation, not a criticism. But I had to lift my jaw off the table. I mean, just tell him what you want. He goes, "No, I'm sorting it on the QR code." And that's the most natural thing in the world for him now.
Yeah.
And so it impacts us sort of how we function on a daily basis, doesn't it? Those preferences.
It really does. Yeah. And we'll get on more to this, but it reminded me of Friday night is Sammy Kebab's night. We always go and get Sammy's Kebab from Abingdon, from the square in Abingdon. And the most important bit of it for me is going to it's a van. Yeah. And chatting to the three guys who are there every single Friday, and we have these wonderful chats. But I see on the order, there's like 8 people have phoned in, and so I would say 80% of their orders are done over the phone or done by the app. But for me, no, go and chat to Sammy's Kebab, and the boys there, and
well, presumably to Sammy, not to his kebab.
Yeah, sorry, to Sammy, not to his kebab. Yes, absolutely right. Yeah, sorry.
So shall I take it to the next level?
Let's do so. Come on,
Right.
Ruthie.
I am Carter with a K. I exist mainly online and only partially in real life, so I apologise if I seem present but not completely available. I still live at home with my mum and dad because rent in London is a social experiment that I can't afford to participate in. My personality is a carefully balanced ecosystem of iced coffee, overthinking, and pretending I'm chill about things when I have absolutely spiraled over them in private. I will say no worries while worrying the entire time. I communicate mostly in memes or voice notes. Not voice messages, voice notes that are either 20 seconds or 7 minutes long. I appreciate direct communication. If there's something wrong, just say it. Don't be vague, because my brain will fill in the gaps with worst case scenarios. And whatever you do not call me unannounced. That is enough to get me hiding under my duvet for a week.
Right.
So I use a reusable water bottle that I am emotionally attached to. I have 3 tote bags that say something about feminism, and I own 1 good hoodie that is technically acceptable for leaving the house in. I am a Gen Z.
Ah, lovely Gen Z. You are a lovely
So, Gen Zs, well, I've, like you all, have done quite a bit of research into my generation. And there are 3 things that really stood out to me. Number 1 is the effect of growing up with social media on their communication traits. The second thing is their expectations when it comes to communication, especially in the workplace. And the third thing is social anxiety. So the first one, this is the first generation that have grown up with social media, with short form videos. And as a result, they have an 8-second attention span.
That's stretching it, I think, with my kids.
So they are clear, they are concise. They want short, direct messages to the point. They do not like corporate jargon. Okay, get to the point. Unsurprisingly, their preferred methods of communication are instant messaging, DMs, that kind of thing. So in the workplace, it's Slack, Teams, that kind of thing. Another result of growing up with social media is that they've been exposed to a hell of a lot of fake news in their lives. So this generation really value authenticity. They want open and honest communication. And another impact is that they need this regular feedback. If you think about it, everything, whatever they do, whatever they say online, they're getting instant feedback. They are getting likes, they're getting comments. So that is what they've come to expect and need. So in the workplace, they want that regular feedback for validation and everything. And if they don't get it, they are likely to assume that something is wrong. So yeah, growing up with internet shaped the millennials, but growing up with this sort of snack media has influenced this generation even further.
Absolutely.
And so their expectations, number 2, their expectations of communication in the workplace. This generation are really socially active. They've got really strong values. So they expect fair and inclusive practices when it comes to the workplace. And they don't like the hierarchical system. They believe that everybody should, whatever age they are, whatever position they're in, everyone should be treated with the same level of respect. So that's really important. And also the work-life balance.
Yeah.
Really important. They have probably seen the millennials and the Gen Ys?
X's.
The Gen X's, they've probably seen them, go through burnout, work themselves into the ground. They're very aware of their mental health. So they may leave messages unread outside of work hours.
All right.
Unless it's something really important. So I think that's something we kind of need to respect those boundaries, right? So if it's not important, maybe try to leave it until 9 o'clock the next morning or whatever. And yeah, the third thing, this social anxiety. Gen Z have reported a higher level of anxiety than millennials at the same age.
Okay.
And when we've been doing our research as well, it is something that kept coming up. We had one person say that, a few people actually, say that this generation, Gen Z, if we had online meetings and there's a group of them, cameras will be off. And I spoke to another person who deals with kind of the recruitment assessment process for big companies. And he said that when it gets to the in-person assessment round where they have to be face-to-face in person, they have a huge number of dropouts due to anxiety.
Wow.
And,
So they'll
and he
get all
said
the way to that level,
they
but then
get
they
all the way,
Wow.
and then it's that face-to-face day. And even, they say, it's making me ill,
Yeah.
and I've got a panic attack. I can't come in.
Right.
And so then they're losing that opportunity, and they won't go any further in the process because of this social anxiety. And I mean, I know COVID and lockdown affected all of us, but this generation, they were, in 2020, the youngest would have been 8 and the oldest would have been 23. So if you think about that age bracket, that is when you're at school, you're at college, you're at university, or whatever. You are finding your social circle. You are finding out who you are, and all of those. Really, it's a really important time in your social life, isn't it? And they've been locked down for all of that.
Yeah.
So that's a really big thing with this generation that I think we all need to keep in mind.
Yeah.
And not that we should allow them to not get involved, because that's not gonna help. Just keeping on allowing them to turn their cameras off and not turn up to these things, it's not going to help. If I was, if I didn't go to that train station every day and put myself in that situation to force myself to do that, I wouldn't have become the speaker that I am now, and I wouldn't be able to be. I wouldn't be sat here with you guys doing
that's
this.
fascinating, isn't it? If that had been a few years ago, if your experience that you mentioned earlier on, you might not have ever got to where you have now.
Yeah.
With that,
So I think there's a real balance. We need to be sensitive to the fact that they don't feel comfortable in those situations, but we can't let them just not do it, because it's not going to help them. They're not going to get better. So it's finding ways within the workplace to softly kind of introduce them, whether that is on these big team meetings instead of just asking for thoughts and the spotlight is on you, whether it's going to breakout rooms and doing it in smaller groups, or allowing, sending meeting agendas in advance so people know what to expect and they're not put on the spot.
Yeah.
So interesting, because one of my bits of feedback as well was, because you mentioned the word social, and I suppose it comes down to what kind of social interaction that they're comfortable with. Because one of the organizations that got back to me was, mentioned how they struggle. They put on social events monthly, and how poor the turnout is from that generation. Just that sort of face-to-face thing, they're just so uncomfortable with. And this lady said, we can improve their technical skills quite easily, but our massive challenge now is how do we help them behaviorally?
Huge. And it made me think of the Nancy Klein book, Thinking Environment, or Time to Think.
Time to Think,
That's it. And how she encourages businesses and meetings to give the forum where everyone's allowed to speak for 2 minutes uninterrupted. They don't have to take their 2 minutes, but everyone has a 2-minute slot where they can share whatever they've thought about that week or that month or whatever it is, and just encouraging people to get used to saying things in meetings rather than taking that easy option, or sometimes feeling like they can't speak up because they are the most junior, or they're the youngest, or there's more important people in the room. I think that's all of those sorts of things so important. And it leads us nicely. Thanks for that, Ruth. And I'm just aware of time, but it leads us nicely into the second part of this, which is, okay, so we've all discovered the preferences. How might this help? How might this hinder? So, Jan, let's go back to you with the baby boomers. What might be the problem with the baby boomers and their preferences?
Well, I think one of the key problems as a baby boomer is that I slow communication down if I'm not careful.
Right.
Interesting as well, Ruth, when you were talking about the hierarchy thing, because baby boomers, we love hierarchy. I mean, wow. Gosh, that's our bedrock. So, I think sometimes if not careful, the baby boomers can come across to other generations as, ponderous.
Yes, go on. Go on.
What made me know you were going to say? So, I think that is the key thing.
Yeah.
And well, again, detail.
Yeah.
I don't want a 7-second chat because I'm not going to get the detail.
Yeah.
We love detail.
Sure.
So I think, yes, if that was a key one, I think it would be around slowing stuff down and just, oh, come on.
Yeah.
And I again, even as we're talking about it, I'm becoming even more aware of it. That well, one, because I do like the hierarchy. Baby boomers tend to like hierarchy. There must be times when I just come across as being well, school marmish is the word that comes to mind, and that it might
Quite like that though.
might be quite scary for some of the different generations.
Yeah. So baby boomers can just, you think, slow everything down a little bit with the need to want to have those longer conversations. They want to have those face-to-face meetings. There's perhaps a bit more of a reluctance for that short, sharp messaging, and it might be fine if you're baby boomer to baby boomer, but it might if you're dealing with other generations. Yeah. Mikey, what about your exes?
Yeah, for me, I think it's all down to tone, and I'll hold my hands up. I am guilty of overreacting sometimes. I if tone, as in kindness in tone or good intent in tone is missing, I'll overthink it. I'll read too much into it. I'll read too much into what I think is missing from tone. I mean, we all know within Speak the Speech, within a few weeks of me joining the classic addition to all my emails, which has become standard Speak the Speech practice now, which is the 3 kisses at the end.
You've got to give him 3 kisses. I mean, if you don't, he'll literally say, "Why didn't you give me 3 kisses?"
I'll let it go if it's 2. I might even let the occasional 1 go, but if there's none, then something's definitely wrong. That even goes for WhatsApp messages. It's a bit nuts. So that's again, is that more of a personal thing or not? I don't know. But if for me as a firm Gen Xer, I really have a need for the clarity of tone and good intent, and I won't always react well if I think that's missing. So for me, that's a big one. That's the big one, really.
Yeah.
And that, that would be more apparent, of course, as I mentioned before, in email than it would necessarily be in phone conversations. But it will never cease to amaze me, the gap sometimes between, how someone comes across in written format and then you meet them face to face. I mean, we had that classic example a few years ago, didn't we? Of course, keeping it completely anonymous. But there was one particular person we were working with whose email tone was so appalling, to the point where I was convinced we'd mortally offended them, and flew to a certain city in the UK only to be greeted by the nicest person you could ever wish to meet. And I thought, this is extraordinary. I had an amazing couple of days' work in this particular city, and went home, and I was back to receiving emails, the email version of this incredibly kind, vivacious, wonderful person. And that contrast will always stay with me. So yeah, tone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose again, it's that awareness piece, isn't it? Being aware of that. She would have been very functional. That's how
In
she
her
was always
mind,
very
absolutely,
very clear, very functional, one sentence, never how are you or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and so how we misinterpreted that. And of course, if we'd never met her in the flesh, we'd have always had this impression
Absolutely.
of this really.
That's the thing.
Yeah. So my preference, my millennials. So got some wonderful emails and feedback from some of our clients about this, and there's 2 actually that I wanted to choose. This preference for email when it's just email. So we've got a lovely client who's head of L&D at a big firm. I'll call him David, and he sent me an interesting story about he received some information via email from a millennial manager about one of this millennial manager's members of staff, and that he said that in the email, this guy needs mentoring. He needs some mentoring. Can you organize this? And so David was in the process of organizing some mentoring for this particular employee, but he thought, I might just go and have a chat with the employee just so that I can make sure I'm doing everything right. So he went to meet the employee, and the employee said, I actually really need some presentation skills. So it was nothing. It wasn't mentoring that he needed. He needed presentation skills, and so they had a chat. And David was able to, thankfully, arrange some presentation skills. Don't know who he used. Hope he used us. So, but what David said to me was that if I hadn't spoken to that employee, if I'd just taken the word of his millennial manager, then I would have given him completely the wrong training. It would have damaged my reputation. It would have cost us money that we, wasted money. And so I thought that was quite an interesting one. And this whole, again, lost in translation when it comes to email and the reluctance to actually speak, to get on the phone and to speak. And then Jenny, I'll call Jenny. So she's got a member of her staff who won't even record her own voice on the automated voicemail if she's not there, if she's not at the desk. She uses the AI version. She will not use her own voice.
Yeah, one thing we were talking about earlier that we haven't mentioned yet is the difference in expectations from the different generations when it comes to acknowledgement.
Yes.
So say, you send an email and an older colleague may expect a very quick reply, got it, thanks, thumbs up, whatever. Whereas a lot of, it seems to be the Gen Z generation that don't feel the need to acknowledge anything. They just, they see the message as enough. I've read it, that's fine. If I have a question about it, then I will reply. But the older generation see that as ghosting.
Yeah.
And,
absolutely.
And rude. Maybe find it quite rude. Yeah, so that's just a difference. And not, like we're saying, maybe one isn't right or wrong, but
that's right.
Could hinder relationships a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, from the Gen Z point of view, I think they've got so many amazing qualities and amazing things they're doing. Their social values, how quick they work, how digitally amazing their brains are, and technologically advanced, and it's all great. It's just this anxiety thing. It's just this social barrier.
Yes.
That I think is their big hindrance.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we as we keep saying, that none of this is right, wrong, or anything like that. But when you, one of my favourite subjects is talking about media richness theory, often referred to as MRT, and it's this communication theory that explains why some communication tools work better than others for certain messages. And the basic concept of media richness theory is, if you imagine a scale of 1 to 10, and the rich communication is when we are with people face to face or on video. If you do video, if you've got your camera on, right, where you can see somebody, you can hear somebody, but also I think, as you mentioned earlier, Mikey, you can pick up on facial expressions, you can pick up on emotion, nuance. And so that would be the richest type of communication. And then, of course, you drop down the scale. Phone calls, well, at least you can still hear them, but right down to instant messaging or email. And of course, there is a time and a place for instant messaging and email. If you just want to update, if you want to say, right, the meeting is at 10 today, just send a quick message, of course. But if you're wanting to convey something a bit more serious, a bit more complex, if there's a difficult message, and probably most importantly, and relevant to the workplace, I would say, is if you're wanting to build or nurture relationships. Yeah. Because if you want to build and nurture relationships, it's very, very hard to do that if your media richness theory is down that bottom of that scale. And we talk a lot on our courses about, and in life really, about trying to build that emotional bank account with people that you work with or clients, where you've got that level of trust, you've got that level of two-way communication. You know a little bit about them, and they know a little bit about you, and how important that can be then. Not just in work, but in life. If you have that level of trust, then you're far more likely to have successful interactions. My favorite and weirdest story with this, but it does go back a few years now. And I was working with a very senior person at a bank. And the reason this particular gentleman had been asked to come on the course was they said he could go even further. He's brilliant, this guy, but his social skills were not great. So we had some sessions. And I'd been warned a little bit about this guy. He's very direct. He's very quick. He's hardly got any time. And sure enough, when I first met him, it took a little while to, break down some of these barriers. We always like to be interested before being interesting. So we ask a lot of questions. We're curious. We try to, ask questions and build that trust. But this guy wasn't having much of it. It was like 1 or 2 word answers. Anyway, we got to about our second session and he'd softened a little bit and we were chatting. And we got onto the subject of fatherhood. And it turned out that he had just recently become a dad for the first time. And I said, "Oh, how lovely." And he said, "Yeah, I came back from paternity leave last month." And I said, "Well, that's something, that you must have had a nice chat with your team. They must be interested in that. And that's a good opportunity, isn't it, to talk about things from outside the work." And he said, "They don't know." I said, "Oh, sorry?" He said, "No, they don't know that I've just become a dad." I said, "But I thought you had paternity leave." He said, "Well, I did, but they didn't know it was paternity leave. They just thought I was off for 2 weeks." And he looked at me and he said, "Do you think that's a bit odd?"
Yeah.
I think it's a bit odd, yeah. I think it's a bit odd that your team who you work with every single day don't even know that you've just become a dad, this massive thing that's happened in your life.
That's insane.
But they didn't. And he said, "No, it's all very surface. It's work. We're busy and it's." And I thought, I thought that was extraordinary, and I thought that was it. That was really extreme. Anyway, so what can we do about this, guys? What are our final top tips for people to take away? Do we have a top tip each? We do, don't we?
We do.
Jan, what's your top tip?
Well, my top tip is absolutely related to what you've just been speaking about. And I think it's the whole, what's the purpose? Why am I communicating? And if I'm communicating with you because I want to build good, strong relationship with you, then do it face to face.
Yeah.
Because going back to everything you just said, that's how I get to know the most about you. We get to share the most about each other, and for building relationships. Yeah, absolutely.
So flex,
Yeah.
know the purpose. Yeah. Yeah.
We all communicate really, really well over all the different media, but we just do it in different dialects.
Yeah.
And if we sort of recognise and accept each other's dialect, then
That's a lovely way of putting it, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
And for me, I think it comes back to the thing I've probably spent most time wanging on about today, which is that thing about tone. So I would encourage everyone to really reflect on whether or not their online or their electronic persona is a fair reflection of them as real life human beings, and is there a gap that needs bridging in that, in those two worlds that we all inhabit now. And think about that. And are there a few things you can do that, how you write an email, how you do the written stuff, is it representing your great qualities as well as it could and should?
yeah.
Good. Yeah. What about you, Ruth?
I would say the main thing, because all these generations have different preferences about how they communicate, they might read things differently. Like Jan with your ... someone
sorry.
thinks you're very angry out there. So I think just be very clear and explicit. Whatever means you're using, whether it is an instant message, whether it's an email, whatever it is, just be clear with the message. Try not to be ambiguous, because then, there's no danger of miscommunication. I think that would be a big tip when you're dealing with multi-generations.
Yes.
Yeah. Agreed. For me, it's knowing who you're going to speak to, if at all possible, having an idea, who is it that I am communicating with here at the moment, and can I flex my communication style? Do I need to flex my communication style here to have maximum impact? And I do it with my son's football coach. He'd be 28, 29, I reckon, and he doesn't respond to text messages, but he does leave voice notes. So when I communicate with him, I mean, I find it a bit weird, but I'll leave him a voice note, and it's the most effective way to deal with that particular person. And I find myself, doing that as well at work. But I think all of this, it's so important. What we really don't want is for people. I came across a lady a couple of months ago who we did our course, and we asked them all about the different types of communication they have to make. And she said, I have to do a lot of meetings. My preference is Teams meetings with my camera off. And the big problem with this was no one knew who she was.
Yeah.
And after 6 months, unfortunately, she didn't go past her probation. Now, I'm not saying that was the only reason. I don't know.
Would have played a big part.
But I'm sure it would have played a big part. Nobody knew who she was because she wasn't ever putting her camera on. And this can't help.
No.
I mean, this can't help. So I think we all need to think about who we're speaking to.
And just be a bit brave,
and
right?
Be brave.
Brave.
Your story from earlier on, I think, encapsulates it.
So we would love to get feedback and even suggestions for future topics, wouldn't we?
We would. We intend doing these, fairly regularly, as much as we can, as diaries will allow. So we really hope you enjoyed listening to that, and that yes, you can of course contact us at info@Speak the Speech if you have any thoughts or questions about what you've heard today. And as Mikey said, also, if you can think of something which would be interesting in the world of communication for us to talk about next. I mean, we talked about maybe things around preference, and we talked, I think, something around nerves, because so many of our clients get nervous. Yeah. That might be a good one, but we're open to more suggestions as well. We can go into a lot of detail, more detail in anything that's communication related. But
info@speakthespeech.co.uk.
Absolutely.
Be clear and explicit.
Sorry, did I not say that bit? That's all right, guys. Well, that was fun. I enjoyed it.
I loved it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thanks all for watching.
And listening.
And we'll see you at the next one.
Smile. How